It's a rare privilege in life to do something that you really love to do and call it work. But every day that I'm privileged to teach here, that's the way I feel. It's something I love to do, and it's hardly work. We just call it that to fool those of you who are supporting us. Every time I preach a sermon on marriage, I'm reminded of the young preacher who announced, not being married himself, that he was going to preach on how to rear your children. As soon as he got married and they had children, he changed the title to Suggestions for Rearing Your Children. And then when he had teenagers, the title changed to Tips for Rearing Your Children. I'm going to give you some tips this afternoon on the second half of marriage, the one you're living a long time after you get married. In the 19th chapter of Matthew, at verse 4, there's a question asked by Jesus that will help all of us. Have you not read? Young people, the marriage manual is called the Bible, and it will give you all kinds of commands and suggestions and tips on how to have the kind of marriage God wants you to have. And of course, it starts out with commitment, but it requires time to develop. I do not believe in agape love at first sight. There might be eros love at first sight, infatuation, but I cannot understand how someone could say he had agape without having some kind of a commitment and being around the person for a long time. It has to be developed. You have to understand that God gave you another person who is totally different from you, has different thought patterns, and so on. And so you have to be that person who takes the time to learn how to love his mate. In fact, God recognized that it takes a certain amount of time for the marriage to be established. Look at Deuteronomy 24:5. Deuteronomy 24:5. When a man hath taken a new wife, he shall not go out to war. Why? Neither shall he be charged with any business. Why? He shall be free at home 1 year, and shall cheer up his wife, which he hath taken. A whole year, you see, to get used to her before she probably wants him to go off to war, but that's another sermon. And so let's talk about the time it takes to get to the second half of marriage. First of all, we need to have time to learn the role that each one of us has. What we don't seem to understand is there are physical differences between the couples. She is a being whose body has more water in it than he does. She has, by count, fewer red cells than he does. That's why she's colder than he is. How many of you have ever argued over the thermostat? What a waste of time. She's 8 degrees physiologically colder than we are. Of course she wants it set higher. So why argue about it? Turn it higher and sit on the porch. It's the only thing I can tell you. Her skin is smoother than yours, fellows. But he has to understand something else about her. She tires far more easily than he does. She needs more sleep than he does. But he's different from you, sisters. His metabolism on the main is higher. He has rougher skin, more red blood cells, and incidentally, his eyesight is different from yours, sisters. I recommend that no husband ever try to teach his wife how to drive. Because the minute they come to a stop sign and she sees a car coming in the next county, she's going to wait on it. And he's going to tell her, go, go, go. And she's going to say, but it's right there. In her eyesight it is. Because her depth perception is different from ours. And so if we're saying go, she's going to say, that guy will hit me. He's 5 miles down the road. Doesn't matter. He's coming. And so we're different. And it takes time to recognize that. A whole lot of time. She has a more active thyroid from mine. That's why she cries more easily. Oh, I hate it when she cries. Please don't do that. But at the same time, because of her active thyroid, she laughs more easily. My problem was to get Dorothy to understand my jokes. I never could get her to do that. But she laughs more easily. But because of her overactive thyroid, here's something interesting. She resists cold better than I do. That's interesting to me. She's different. Her internal organs differ in size from mine. She's more sensitive to sounds, tastes, and smells, but especially husbands. She's more sensitive to your touch. That's how she operates. A non-intimate touch. Dorothy told me something years ago that amazed me. She said, you know the most important thing you do with me? I said, what? She said, you hold my hand when we pray. Well, that's cheap enough. It takes time to learn our roles. And young people, if you'll remember that, you won't run home after the first argument because you're going to have one. It takes time. And that's why that third element in marriage was so important. The two become one. They don't start out that way. Second, it takes time to recognize that time itself is a challenge. A funny thing happens on the way to old age. We change. That girl that was 21 when I married her, and I was 22, that's not the same girl. And I'm certainly not the same man. We change. How many of you know what old age is? It's like being punished for a crime you really didn't commit. And it takes time to recognize that. There's a challenge here to every marriage. In courtship, our relationship didn't just happen, and good marriages don't just happen. Here's where hard work starts. And what we do is grow in response to each other, trying to find out, what do I like about her appearance? What do I like about her personality? How does she make me feel? What's really important here? And the challenge is hard here. When we're courting, we always look our best when we're together. Wait until you get married. I thought you'd laugh there. You're not going to look your best all the time. You ought to take a look at Eddie when he gets up in the morning. Have you done that, Diane? And you're still married, right? Okay, just think about it. There's a challenge here to keep going. And never hate the wife of your youth. A brother told me who his wife had died. He wished he could have told her he loved her more often. Dorothy and I put into practice something about a year ago. We never go to bed anymore without saying, I love you. So important. There's a challenge here in the time itself that it takes to get to the other side of marriage. But it's a wonderful challenge if you keep it. In the third place, and husbands, I'm going to talk to us a moment. This is the time that you and I have to keep the spark going. Look at Ephesians 5 with me. This is our task. God gave it to us. This is the time for me to plan activities that make her feel special. This woman to whom I'm married is second only to God, Christ, and the Holy Spirit. That's it. That's how important she is to be in my life. That's why it's so painful when your mate goes. You lose part of your identity. You lose part of you. You lose that part of you that was so special to you. It's a challenge now to keep the spark going. Verse 25, husbands, love your wives. How? As Christ also loved the church. When was the last time you brought her candy and she didn't say to you, what'd you do wrong? Is it so abnormal that she feels like you're trying to make up for something? Of course, it can become so normal as it is in Dorothy's case. She asked me where her candy is, but that's another problem. Actually, she bawled me out the other day when I brought her candy. She said she wasn't supposed to eat all that, and then she ate all that, so that's all right. They think differently. This is the time, husband and wife, when you discover something. Those children are second on the list. He, next to God, not the children. This is hard for sisters to learn sometimes. And when you get to the point where they aren't in the house anymore, psychologists have a name for what happens here to many couples. It's called an empty nest syndrome. They never got together through all those years. The children were in between, and when they're gone, they feel like they don't have a thing in common. And they feel like there's some problems here. There probably are. And so I'm going to suggest that to get to the second half of marriage, you have to work on this, working together in the first half. Those children, I'm sorry if you feel this way, but I'm telling you the truth, are not as important to you as your wife is, your husband is. He is the one to whom you're to pay attention. And the best way I know to do that is to be flexible. And it needs to be the case that we have a lot of humor in the marriage. Let's look at 1 Corinthians 7. We need to learn to be available to each other. Most important, to each other. Not tonight is a line that never comes out of a Christian's mouth. Unless there's a sickness or something. Look at this now. This is verse 2 of 1 Corinthians 7. Let every man have his own wife, and every woman her own husband. Why? To render unto the wife due benevolence, and the wife unto the husband. We owe each other this intimacy. We owe each other this idea of keeping the spark going. I will tell you, though, to explain yourself to your mate when you're doing that. Dorothy gave me a note one time that's just before I preached, and it said on it, kiss. And I thought, Chuck, that's so wonderful. She's giving me a kiss before I get ready to preach. But she said, no, I meant keep it short, stupid. So sometimes you have to explain what you mean when you're talking to your mate there. Young people, I think what happens is we expect idealism, and then it becomes realism. When you get married, this won't do a thing for you, except bring together two people who are totally different. And then it takes work. If I get married thinking it will change my life, I'm not thinking about the process correctly. That's idealism, but it isn't realism. And so to get to the second half of marriage in a correct way, let's start doing things together now without the children. That's why grandparents were invented. You give the children to them for a while, and you take her out. I want to recommend to every husband, ask your wife for a date. Oh, I'm married to her. I don't. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You need to date her. How did you win her? Ooh, I just saw 3 wives elbow their husbands. I did. And I know why. We need to ask her for a date. If I walk into your home, I will sense after a while it has a certain character to it. I want to tell you a quick story, and then I'll get on to the next point. But I was asked to come home to an elder and his wife's home one day for lunch, and I went, and as I sat there, he wasn't there yet, and his children were talking to me about their father, and I thought, this must be the most wonderful man who ever lived, the way they were talking about him. And then I went in to sit down at dinner, and I listened to her, and I watched her, and I watched him, and I watched those children, and I knew exactly what had happened in that house. She had set that mood. She had made him the king. She was the queen. Those children idolized their parents and adored them. And I thought, those two have learned how to keep the spark going. They have learned how to fix the attitude of love in the home. And because of that, they had peace of mind. Matthew 5, verse 4. This is also a time, if I'm going to have a good second half of marriage, not only to learn my role, to understand there's a challenge because of time. It's not only a time to keep the spark going, but this is a time to grow intellectually. I want you to suggest that we may remain a challenge to our mates intellectually. One of the reasons that we have a class for the wives here at school is so that we don't hurt the marriage. Here's a young man studying the Bible every day for 2 years, and she's not studying anything. They'll start to grow apart intellectually. We need to teach her too. And wives, let me tell you, some of you know the Bible better than your husbands do. You seem to have more classes than we do, pay more attention to it than we do. And sometimes you grow apart intellectually. In the second half of marriage, we have to be on the same page. We have to be studying together, being interested in the Bible together, and so on. Grow together intellectually. In the next place, let's go to Ephesians 4:26. I read in a psychology book about an elephant who had a great memory, and I thought he had nothing on my wife. Women have tremendous memories. Dorothy can remember what we wore when we first dated. I cannot remember the date itself. If I say something to Dorothy, she will not forget it. I heard about a fellow who said every time he had an argument with his wife, she got historical. I think I know what he meant. This is the time right now, so the second half of marriage gets better, to clean up the past offenses. Be ye angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down on your wrath. I want to have a long, intimate, lifetime relationship. End every day with a clean slate, folks. Clean up all those past offenses. Oftentimes when I'm talking to a married couple and they're fighting, I ask them, what went wrong? And she will bring up what went wrong. He won't remember it. Now, sisters, you can help us here. When you say to us, you know what you did, we don't know what we did. So you're going to have to tell us what we did. We don't remember it. We don't remember what we said. It just goes in one ear and out the other. In our case, our ears. And so we have to clean up those past offenses. We get arguing, we say ugly things, clean it up. Otherwise, listen carefully. At 11 o'clock at night, she's going to feel used if there's no forgiveness. This will endanger the marriage over the years. She will be disrespectful of him. He will lose the very thing he wants the most, her respect. Why? Because a woman, listen, made by God this way, the first thing she does when there is a difficulty, she immediately separates herself from us emotionally. That's her immediate reaction. Not mentally, emotionally. And if I understand that, I'll learn to ask forgiveness. And sister, you too. When there's an argument or there's a problem, made by God the way we are, we sort of clam up, pout, grunt, that's it. But she remembers. And I have to work on that. What to do? Find out what you said. Admit your part. The people I talk to that resist this, are they already divorced? Those who have a close friend who's divorced and trying to talk to them, don't let your husband treat you that way kind of talk. And they resist this idea of be ye angry and sin not. Take care of it today, not tomorrow, not yesterday, today. We need to remember that we are in the second half of marriage, and it's time, past time, to clean up these past offenses. Also, in the next place, we hopefully by this time are friends. In the second half of marriage, hopefully we've taken the time to be friends. Someone said to me just recently in a session, this was a husband. She's a friend with everyone else but me. She treats everyone else better than she treats me. He went on to add, I wish we could be friends, but her girlfriends mean more to her than I do. A lady said to me one time, you should see how he treats his friends at work. He does more for them than he does for me. And then I heard from my son of a lady who said to him, when we got married, I thought I would be his best friend. Boy, was I wrong. Isn't that sad? In the second half of marriage, I don't have a friend. Well, he's friendly and nice to strangers, but he treats me as if I had the plague. In his book, Why Love Is Not Enough, Saul Gordon wrote, you may be surprised how readily love and intimacy grow within the open communication of genuine friendship. This friendship places a premium on enjoyable time together, trust, shared values, and a mutually compatible sense of humor. In short, marry a good friend. Powerful love and sexual feeling can emerge in time and will probably fluctuate somewhat, but the underlying friendship will serve as a strong foundation to the marriage. Remember, friendship is the starting point for any serious relationship. In the second half of marriage, time has passed now. Am I regretting that I got there without learning my role and that it's different from hers and hers is different from mine? Am I now regretting that I didn't take the time to change, to practice courting her again and dating her? Did I forget to keep the spark going and now I've reached the second half of marriage and I'm not enjoying it? Are we growing together intellectually? Is it the case that we never let the sun go down on our wrath? And finally, is he my friend now, or is she my friend? This institution, so-called of marriage, recognized by God as taking time to develop, is one of those three areas of life that God ordained, along with government and the church. And when the home is disrupted, when there are no longer friends living in the same house, that hurts the country and the church. In fact, it can destroy a church. And so plan now, young people, for the second half of your marriage. And if you're already in that second half, I would argue and suggest that you work on those things that just aren't there yet. And husbands, you can start by dating her again. And wives, you can start in a very unusual way. Tish, does BJ have shoulder blades? You got a right hand? Did you know he's the best preacher you know? Tell him so. What's he need from you more than anything? Respect. And I'll ask BJ when I see him, when was the last time he brought you flowers? Because that's his job. What she needs from us is to hear, right here, I love you. She has to hear that. I need you is a better one. But she has to hear it. He needs respect. She needs intimacy. When we work on those things, we become friends. And the second half of marriage is more delightful, maybe even than the first half. So many couples have told me that when they learned how to be married, it was a whole lot better than when they started. He wants us to be one. That's our goal. The best way I know to lay a foundation for a good marriage is for both of us to be Christians. Both of us to have repented of our sins, having believed that he's the Christ, and both of us having confessed before witnesses that he is the Son of God, and both of us having been immersed in water and placed into Christ by the Lord and given remission of all our past sins. Then we start out together in a good place, because no other foundation can any man lay than that is laid, which is Jesus Christ, 1 Corinthians 3:11. And then, when it gets tough, when friendship is waning, when it's the case that I'm not using my time correctly, it's time for me to repent again and ask God to direct me according to His Word. If you have a need this afternoon, please make it known while we stand and while we sing.